Okay, episode 7 of season 4 of Star Trek Discovery we talk about in a moment. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd coming to you from Farpoint Studio. We have But to Connect as the name of this episode. It's preceded by dots, which really mean that it's a part of a larger phrase, and we find it is not to destroy, but to connect. It's the question that's put up against the council that's been organized by President Rillak of Federation and non-Federation worlds to figure out what to do about the DMA, whether to try to make peace with a race they're calling 10C right now that may or may not be hostile, or whether to destroy the weapon, which Tarka, who has devised a weapon, advocates. We find out later that he has ulterior motives, and he has been chumming up to Book, and we weren't quite sure why until the end of this episode. At any rate, Tarka actually is from some parallel universe, not the Mirror Universe and not the Kelvin universe, but rather from some other place where everything comes up roses and there's no war and there's no strife and there's no it's the utopia that Gene Roddenberry dreamed of, and he's from that universe and wants to go back, and by using this weapon believes that he can transport himself back. And so with Discovery's spore drive, he can put himself into the center of that, send himself home, and save everybody from the weapon. Not such a bad deal. At any rate, that is the main story, and there's a lot of discussion, as in very Star Trek manner, of how a decision like that is made, whether you go for the peaceful route, which the Federation has always advocated, or whether you just blow it up, which is kind of a Star Wars thing. So while this discussion is going on, we're back on Discovery, where Saru is with Kovic. Once again, David Cronenberg comes in and does this chilling character, but he seems to be a fair arbiter, at least. And they are deciding here whether Zora is the ship's computer or if it is an illegal sentient artificial intelligence. And the case is argued by Saru on one side, saying how much Zora cares for the crew, and Stamets on the other, saying that a tendency to not listen to captain's orders could be very dangerous for everyone if she decided that her main function was no longer to protect the people on Discovery or to protect the Federation. And they're all well put arguments, and Kovic, as the judge and arbiter on this, is preparing a report for what to do to recommend the Federation's decision on what to do about it. So it kind of calls back Measure of a Man, I think a little differently than you might think, in that before we already have Data as a fairly self-actualized individual rather than just a machine. And here, while Zora has evolved in a different way than Data did, the arguments are essentially the same, but the forum by which it would be considered would be different. For instance, Data was already in Starfleet. Data was a member of a crew, and the ship's computer, now called Zora, is not exactly that. So having the full Starfleet trial is probably not called for here, but rather a decision to be made as to what to do with this machine, whether she is the ship's computer that has developed some extra abilities, or if she's an unchained artificial intelligence inhabiting the ship, which could be dangerous and against some of the rules of the Federation. So the way this is decided, I think, is quite good, and the solution that is arrived at also is quite good. We also have, as a subplot, as part of the what to do about the DMA, kind of an estrangement between Book and Burnham. While they are still cordial with each other, they obviously are on opposite sides of the table as to what to do. And Book, of course, seems to be following along with Tarka more than with Burnham's feel of how this should be done. It turns out they find out that Tarka's weapon that he wants to use violates the Khitomer Accords. This is the accords that were arrived at during Star Trek VI that were a meeting at Camp Khitomer to work out a deal between the Klingons and humans. But as I was saying, we're leaving relationships in different directions here. While Book and Burnham seem to be pushing apart, Saru and Chancellor T'Rina of Ni'Var seem to be further advancing their interests in each other, shall we say. Certainly, the Vulcans would claim to know nothing of love, but there is certainly an attraction between Saru and T'Rina that obviously is continuing to go on. Saru this time presents her with a Kelpian plant. We also have noticed that the Tals, that is to say Adira and Gray, are going to be leaving the crew for a little while. Adira is going to be on about a week's leave, so they say, going back to Trill with Gray, who is going to complete a study of the Guardian role along with Guardian She. So hopefully to become a Guardian, and eventually for he and Adira to become kind of a long-distance relationship, although Adira will go with Gray initially. So those two are leaving the ship. As we also know that Book leaves the ship, and he leaves Grudge behind, indicating that he may not come back, or may not think he's going to survive to come back. The love between Burnham and Book is pretty intense, and it's not breaking that, but certainly their differences of opinion have caused him to want to put some distance between them, and we'll see what happens here. This has all become part of a cliffhanger, so the series stops right now at episode 7, and we'll take a hiatus until February 10th. On February 10th, it will come back and do the second half of the season, another 6 or 7 episodes. In the meantime, Star Trek Prodigy comes back, and we'll be doing some episodes there. Later on, we have Picard, which will also be starting in February with new episodes there. So that's what we have running in the Star Trek universe right now. I'd like to know what you think. Please put it down in the comments. And while you're there, if you have not subscribed, please do. It's free and easy to do. You can click on subscribe on this page, or you can go to the Oldest Nerd mark that's on that side of the screen usually. So, thank you. Until next time, don't go far.